Cabernet. In regards to consultation of any kind, we've received absolutely none. You went so far as to refuse to even speak to us. So you can't make it right by saying it's safe, it's safe, it's safe. If there's 1% chance of it not being safe, it's not right. Look at past examples. Los Angeles, Louisiana, Saskatoon, Seneca Lake. These are all sites with caverns, with natural gas. They've all failed. We're not stupid. I don't believe natural gas and oil will go away tomorrow. But it's certainly on its way out. We should be looking for environmentally friendly ways of looking for power, for heat sources, etc. and so on. So why are we, as Nova Scotians, as a whole, having to put up with this last kick of the can? You know what's going to happen to this site. Eventually it's either going to fail or it's going to cause some type of an issue. Nova Scotians as a whole will be left holding the bag again. And you'll all go home. It doesn't affect you people. You just go home. We live here. These are our homes. Everything that we have, we put into these properties. Everything we have, we put into these lands. We fish, we drink the water, we hunt, we raise families. So why is it the company to make a profit at our expense? Why is that reasonable? I blame the government just as much as you. The government is 100% entirely at fault in allowing this to take place. But you're also at fault, because you know what you're doing. You know the end result of this. You don't put this in the middle of people's homes. Look it around. Saskatoon, for an example. What were there? They were evacuated for 3 weeks, and it was a 4-kilometer radius, or something like that, 2 weeks. And there were 3 homes. Look at a 2-kilometer radius around that site up there on Brentwood Road. And it's not Alton, it's Brentwood cavern site. Did anybody here know about a cavern site back 7 years ago? No. So you didn't do your job. So why is it that you're allowed to continue? You want to make it right, pack up and go home.
You know, Gina did some great work. I read her thesis, but it is a thesis. And she is a young lady that just got out of college. She does not have the type of tenure that would dictate this type of thing going on in the river. I understand Mr. Rutherford, is it? He's done some science on it. There are other science people in the fishery that seriously disagree. So it's not, everyone doesn't agree on this in the science. The fellow from Acadia University down there, I forget his name, off the top of my head, he doesn't agree with it either. A lot of people don't agree with it. So, how many core samples? I'd like to know how many core samples there was, and where they are, and what portion of them were tested, and how come all the test results aren't there? That's my question.
I have a couple of points. I'm Willie Courtney, the president of Shubenacadie River Commercial Fishermen Association. We've asked for consultation, and it's not your fault either, with our environment and fisheries, October 14. We've yet to be talked to. We were told to go to Altongas and ask them our question. We did that. We got your answers. So it's not just our beautiful native people. Thank God they're here, or you would have started a year ago. This project is just absolutely so insane. You've got less than 3% of the population of Nova Scotia using natural gas. So you're going to make giant holes in the ground so you can buy it low and sell it high. But probably not even to us, are eggs. And these little fish don't grow up in the Bay of Fundy, they grow up in the Shubenacadie River system. They float back and forth 4 times a day across that intake phase of the Gabriel Wall of Death. They're sucked in there. You advertise that it's only like 14% chance that they're going to go into that channel and be sucked in. Well, they do it 4 times a day, every day. They don't go anywhere. They're growing, or they're trying to, but they're not going to get to grow because you're going to suck them into that screen. want to mask all that by saying it's a salt brine issue, and we'll see that later. And unbelievably, these people say we should get it operational so we can see if there's any threat. The threat is the minute you turn the pump on, you're sucking fish, and fish nutrient in that river system is never coming back. Not to mention the fresh water.
I just want to say that something that before this project started, and we were not included in this, we weren't consulted, and I care about my people, and I'm not trying to make this personal in any way, but I've already had dealings with this company that made me lose faith in them already. Like I had mentioned to Mr. Rob, like I had already mentioned, over a year ago, Brine Enterprises and Elmsdale Landscaping came to my property, sucked my frog pond dry, then proceeded to hydro seed it while I'm in there cutting wood. And there's a big mist coming in. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So after I complained about it, I get a call back 2 weeks later from Paul at Elmsdale Landscaping, chomping in my ear. I told him I had trail cams. I told him that I had footage and the whole bit, and all I got was a few choice words and a hang up. And so right there, that was enough for me to just know what kind of company that I'm dealing with right there. Why I say I don't trust your company. I don't want nothing to do with you guys for 10 supposed lousy jobs. SoCal Gas, I asked Rob, did you know anything about SoCal Gas in California? He said I'm not a science guy, right? I respect that. But I do know a lot about this, and I'll tell you one thing. You tried to tell me that it wasn't the same kind of thing. Well, anything that gives off methane gas to me is a concern. And I'm sorry, it's just, you guys are, I can't even get a lousy, answer out of you guys when you go and hydro seed, you trespass on my land and all this. And believe me, I'm not trying to make this personal about me. I just thought it should be known, because really this goes way farther than me, like I said. So,
works a whole lot better than just an intake pipe with a screen on it that DFO required. We've looked at all the other species that have lived there and all the literature and salinity tolerances, and we know what salinities those fish are in the river at the site. It will go on the turn of a tide, in the 90 minutes as the tide comes up, that first 90 minutes of the tide coming in, the salinity will go from 2 or 3 parts per thousand up to 28 parts per thousand sometimes in the summer. And the fish are there and they live in that and they tolerate it or deal with it or live there. That's naturally happening in the river now. And we will not be over those, outside of those limits that happen naturally in the river now. But the river's flowing out, and it flows out into the Minas Basin, the Bay of Fundy, and the Gulf of Maine. So that will keep moving out. It doesn't stay in the river and come back and forth. It's dissolved. It's not the same. It's not the same as the particles of sand. The particles of sand are carried back up by the tide, and they back up onto the bars and build the bars. That are dissolved in the water is not the same.
Right now, are assessed as endangered by Kosiwik due to loss of spawning habitat. The tidal energy facility on the Annapolis River wiped out the spawning population in that river. This is the last remaining spawning, known spawning habitat for striped bass in the Bay of Fundy. And the question that we have is, has this ever been done anywhere else where salt caverns have been mined out like this and discharged into a river system like this? And what are the results of that? Has this, we're unaware that this has ever happened. Has this ever happened anywhere else?
Anybody here? Speechless?
I'd like the engineers to answer because there have been caverns all over the place, salt caverns hollowed out.
Into a comparable river system.
Well, there isn't a comparable river system anywhere in the world, is there? The advantage of this river was the places where they dumped it before and directly into the coastal zone like they did in the Canso Strait when they did the ones there in Cape Breton years and years ago. Here it mixes, it dilutes, it moves out, and it moves away. You're dumping it just in the coastal zone in an estuary that's not moving. It just sat there.
How do you know that? Did you do a dive?
What, that it'll move? Oh, I think anybody that's been on that river knows there's a lot of flow.
Your very own studies say you've never tried this before in the tidal estuaries.
Show us the study.
Simple question, yes or no?
We've never done this in a tidal estuary before. All the work that we've done is, I mean, we've built storage facilities, for example, as it comes to this facility itself, I mean, we've done a lot of science over the past 8 years. Dalhousie University has been on the river for the past 8 years, catching all sorts of species, monitoring this, and we've got an extremely good history of what's been done on the river. Before we build anything, it's going to be, I mean, we're following all the permitting that's been given to us. I mean, we'll be complying with the permits that we have. We won't be building anything that doesn't meet permits, period. Okay?
Question, I would want to hear the answer on the test wells. We didn't get an answer on that. You said the test wells were from one particular spot. Could have been differences there. I'd like to know how many of them were actually taken and done. Another question is on this deselling. They're mobile, I understand. They'll be able to move around in different spots. I'd like to see something done with that. Again, you talked about jobs were Aboriginal at this part and stage, yet there has been none. No Aboriginals on any of the parts of the projects, and know it for a fact. Also, I'd like to know the answer to the first stage when Brine did the job and breached the waterway there, the encouragement, the banks, and there was no fines or anything handed out by the province. So when those were breached, can you speak on that part as well?
Regarding the cores, and this is subject to verification, keep in mind that this project was being managed by someone who is no longer with the company. No. I believe that there were three cores that were three separate cores drilled, and that the sampling that was done and provided as part of the application was representation from each of those three cores.
The tests were, they drilled holes down where the wells are going to be, the 3 wells that they're planning right now. And that's where those cores were sampled from, and that's where that was sampled from. If they do any more, then they will have to test the salt that comes out of those to see what's in those before they brine them.
I could be wrong on that. They were smaller caverns. By the time it got to the approval stage, without a new environmental assessment, which is required in the first page of the original, it says if there's any change in the project whatsoever, a new assessment is required. By the time it got to the approval stage, all of a sudden the project jumped from 4 caverns to 18 caverns, 95% bigger than the original size caverns, without a new environmental assessment. It clearly states in the environmental assessment any increase in the project size requires one. That wasn't done. So the intent was for 18 caverns, not 3. The idea of 3 came, the first time anyone heard of 3 caverns was when the protest took place on the highway. Now isn't that a strange coincidence? When all the media attention came to it, all of a sudden you got caught going from 4 to 18 without proper paperwork, and now all of a sudden it's back to 3. But even that 3 caverns is still 50% bigger in volume than your first original 4 that you had approved. The only reason it's 3 is because you got caught red-handed up in the ante. If I were going to apply for a building permit for 4 bungalows and about 18 apartment buildings, I think somebody would have said something. And even at 3 is a 50% increase in the size of that project with no additional paperwork. So who in the government just allows you to do that without Colin built a garage in Brentwood. A clean, brand new, up to code garage. And he was required to go ask his neighbors if they had a problem with it. There's land use bylaws. So they can't, zoning wasn't changed, I checked it out. Somebody changed the land use from residential and resource to industrial. None of us were told. I don't know who did it. It had to be Colchester. They kept telling me, oh, we had nothing to do with it. Someone had something to do with it. So what is the intent? Is the intent 18 caverns?
We don't have 18 cameras in the budget. We have one more well that was supposed to be drilled because one of the wells that we drilled was in a good cavern spot. We didn't know that until we drilled.
Oh, so you didn't know, so you drilled, but you've only got 4 core samples.
We got 4 core samples.
You have 4 core samples for an environmental assessment that clearly states 18 caverns and possibly 20. Does that sound like that's enough to you, honestly? To really, you're going to take 4 lousy core samples from 18 caverns that are 100 meters in diameter, and that's a fair representation of what you know is going to go into the river? It's not.
Years down the road, and something will happen with that when all the salt is done and holding the land up. What are you going to do?
That's a big hole to fill.
So we have a decommissioning plan for the caverns. I know, I've now heard 50-year lifespan from y'all, from the south. But no, it's not a magic 50-year and you do away with it. A cavern does not magically stop working at 50 years. So we have a decommissioning plan that's in place, and will be in place when we get the caverns built as to what we will do when we decommission. I don't have the details, I really don't.
Then you don't have, this is not good enough.
No.
Today. We've heard a lot today. We've approached this project, especially on the science piece, the best science that we can do as a company, with the best engineering we can do as a company. Our company, our board would not let us proceed with a project like this if it was unsafe. Everyone next to me, we all have families too. We have kids. We need to look at ourselves in the mirror every morning too. And we believe that what we've done on this project so far, and the science that we have, has been very good. We want to keep engaged with this community. We want to do things much better. That's our commitment.